Good morning, everybody. I hope that you are well. It is Saturday, December 4th, 2021. I've got my Christmas sweater on. This is Jingle by Isabel Kramer. I knit this in my own hand spun, and then I used Crafty Jack's Tough and Tender in the natural colorway for the rest of the sweater, because I know that somebody's going to ask and I'm going to forget to say. So welcome everybody to December. If you celebrate the holiday season and if you participate in Advent, that has started for our family here. Thank you so much, you guys, for the kind words about my sweater. I kind of wish that it was all hand spun, that like the background color, the main color was hand spun too, but that's okay. I got away with the yoke, and that's really what matters. The yoke is actually Kinfolk, and I'm hoping that Kaylin will start dyeing again soon. It's Kinfolk, and it was in organic Polworth, and I can't remember what the colorway was. It was one that my friend Diana had as well, and I can't remember what it's called. I'm not going to look it up right now, but it is on my Ravelry projects page. I'll try to remember to link my sweater in the show notes later. So it is December 4th. It is Saturday. I want to welcome you all to this place. This is Wool and Spinning. This is the place that we come to talk about all things spinning, hand spinning, making yarn, and of course using our yarns. So we sort of use the hashtags, hashtag Wool and Spinning and hashtag Use Your Hand Spun. So that's sort of what we do here. Welcome to new viewers. Welcome to returning viewers. Thank you so much for checking out the show and for continuing to watch week after week. It means a lot to me. If you don't mind taking a moment to just hit the like and the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. And to those who are patrons of the show and of the community, thank you for your ongoing support. You're the ones that keep the lights on week after week and keep us doing the things. So I just want to say an extra special thank you to you guys. Thank you for the kind compliments on my sweater. I really appreciate that. I love Isabel Kramer's patterns. She's they just seem to fit me. I know a lot of people have the same experience, and I know friends who have very different body shapes from mine, and they fit them as well. I think her sweaters, her fit, the way that she does it, it just works. So yeah, definitely check out Isabel if you haven't seen her patterns on Ravelry or on some other platform. I think she uses, is it PayHip? I think she uses, there's a few different ways that you can get her patterns. So we have kind of a packed show today. I have some weaving that I wanted to share with you. I got an early Christmas present, which is the new, this isn't new actually. It's, it was published, when was this published? I've been sort of following this book for a while and wanting to purchase it along with the Croakbracht book. And I ended up purchasing both. This came out in 2018. It's by Jennifer Moore. If you haven't seen this book, it's called Double Weave, from the Weaver Studio. Jennifer Moore, she's actually been just teaching some workshops recently on double weave. And my friend Felicia has been taking one of her workshops, and she said it's just been awesome. So it's definitely on my bucket list. Anyhow, beautiful book. I just received it. I'm excited to start playing around. One of the things that I would really like to make, actually, and I was showing the kids and they were super excited about it, but I don't think that it will be the next thing going on the loom, was this log cabin blanket. It's just, actually, why don't I show it here? It's just absolutely beautiful. And the it's done in Harrisville, Shetland, which unfortunately is very difficult to get right now. But I was looking on the website and on a couple of websites, and there are a few places that you can still get cones. So I was looking at that. But anyways, early Christmas present, really excited about that. So I thought I would share that with you guys for those who are wanting to learn how to do double weave. And I have a new sweater cast on because I need a new sweater, like I need a hole in my head. And I also thought I would share my Advent spinning with you. So this is Polypay, and we'll talk about that for the sort of the remainder of my segment, and then we'll go into community participation. So thank you, Diana. I love this way of starting Saturday morning and kicking off the weekend with a jolt of creative inspiration. Oh, Diana, that means the world to me. Thank you so much. Did you notice, great question, Dion. Do you notice a difference when you use different wools in the same project? So it really depends on the wool. So this is Targhee with Polworth, and it's a commercial spun, but I spun the Targhee was a commercial yarn, the Tough and Tender, but the organic Polworth is so similar, and I spun it so similar to the Targhee that I didn't notice a difference at all. The Polworth sort of has those, because it's hand spun, there's those places where it's like a little bit inconsistent because it's your hand spun, and you know, there's those areas that are a little bit sort of thick and thin, but overall it was negligible in terms of the differences between the two. I'm not sure that it would have worked the same if I had had a real woolen rustic yarn for the color work and then gone into the Targhee, the Tough and Tender. I think I would have chosen a yarn that would more closely matched if I wanted a commercial main color. And I've done in the past, when have I combined yarns? Oh, the Spark Cardigan was all hand spun. I've done it in the past. I'm trying to think of when I've done it. Anyhow, what I have done in the past is mixed woolen spun, hand spun with Jameson and Smith, and that works really, really well. So there will be some background noise today just before we run the intro credits because soccer has been canceled because the sort of craziness of BC weather is continuing. We've had all of the rain, and then we had a little bit of sun, and then we had all of the rain. So there's not really been any recovery started, although part of the highway is now open. But the Coquihalla, which is sort of the gateway to the interior of the province, is going to be closed for months. So I was talking to one of my best friends on Thursday night. There was a group of us, there was 5 of us girls, and we all grew up together, and 4 of us still keep in touch, and I still keep in touch with the 5th one, although she's lost touch with the other 3. Kind of confusing. Anyways, and her and I go for walks sort of whenever we can, and they've ended up living down the street from us, which is kind of funny. But the other 3 have since moved away, and so the 4 of us, that group of 4, we've kept in touch all these years. And one of them is actually the kid's godmother, and there's just a lot of connection there. So we try to get together sort of once every couple of months on a Zoom call. That none of them live here in this sort of area of Vancouver anymore. So one of them, they're planning on flying home for Christmas, and the other ones, they're not sure what they're going to do. They may have to go down and go around, go through Leavenworth in Washington, for those who know kind of the geography of this area. And they're coming from Kamloops, so it would be a big drive. But they're adamant that they're going to come down because they're a blended family. So some of the kids are down here and some of the kids are up there. So they really want to be together. Anyways, really tough. So soccer's been canceled this morning because now it's snowing. So that's fun. So, you know, climate change, super, super fun. So I'm watching the snow falling out the window here, and actually our neighbors have their Christmas lights on, and I have to say it's actually really pretty. But I feel for the people that are really affected by all of this weather. We know people that are personally affected who've lost their homes, and it's just heartbreaking. So thank you for your continued thoughts and prayers. All right, let's run the credits and we'll get into the show. Jennifer, you're too funny. What I can't figure out is how you get so much knitting done with spinning, weaving, family work, etc. So I actually had a little bit of a sort of a moment last night, if you will, for lack of a better word. And I just said to Mike, like, something's got to give. And he's really kind about it. And we sort of started a conversation about it. But I was really feeling this week like I was being pulled in a lot of different directions. And James has had a really light week at school. And yet we still couldn't get it all done. But some of that is him learning how to manage his time and learning how to get his work done. He said yesterday morning that he was going to start his work at 9 o'clock, but he didn't start until 10:30. So in the morning. So trying to sort of figure out that balance and that dance. And I just haven't been making as much this fall. You know, I've been working on that Yostava cardigan for quite a long time. I did finish one of the 2 sleeves. I did make a decision about the collar. And then I was like, you know what? It's okay not to have this done in any kind of time frame. I'm going to work on something else because I was feeling so inspired by something that Kelly had posted. So let's talk about that first. It's commercial yarn. I have yarn in my stash, commercial yarn, that's 100% wool. It's a lot of like Cascade 220, Cascade Ecological, Cascade Eco. And it's been in my stash for a really long time. And the yarn is actually starting to break down a little bit. So when I went to start winding the Cascade Eco skein, and you guys know how big those ecological skeins are. They're like 500 yards, not quite. They're like 450 yards, and they're big skeins, right? So they don't twist really nicely, and they kind of sit in these big skeins in your stash. And it's a dark brown. I had bought 2 skeins of it years ago. Like, we're talking probably 8 to 10 years ago, for a sweater for my dad that I never made because my mom said that he wouldn't wear it. And because it was sort of negative, I just never cast it on. So these skeins have been sitting in my stash. And what's happened is they've started to kind of break down. So as I was winding it, the yarn kept breaking. So I have a ton of ends, but my attitude is I'm just going to start knitting with this yarn. And if I make a sweater that's not my favorite, I'll either gift it to someone or I'll donate it. And I was feeling really inspired after our conversation last week about sweaters and the sweaters that we actually wear. And this has been on my list forever. And this is the Farm Cardigan by Amy Christophers, however you say her name. I think it's Christophers. And it's just a really lovely waffle pattern up here. It's actually very similar to the Yostava cardigan. So I'm kind of giggling at myself because now this is the 3rd sweater that I've cast on this fall that's kind of got this same texture, because there was the cat bells with the garter lace, and then Yostava has the waffle pattern, and now this is kind of a bit of a waffle pattern. And then you're working the button band at the same time. So this is 1x1 rib at the bottom. It's knit on 5.5mm needles. No, I did not do a gauge swatch. I have worked with this yarn so much. I have to admit, I was kind of giggling at myself because I was casting this on and I was sitting there working on it, and I was wearing my A Day that was by Cirilla Rose, and it was such a popular pattern about, I don't know, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Was it that long? And it's made in Cascade Ecological. It was in this denim-y blue. And so I started knitting, and I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy this. I was so inspired by a couple of the sweaters that Kelly posted. And I just thought, you know, I'm just going to work on this. I was working on it last night at the pool. The problem is that Yostava is getting too big to drag around. It's because it's only got 1 more sleeve to go. So it's a lot of sweater to drag around. So I needed something smaller and lighter. And I'm still kind of burned out on socks. So this is in just the natural brown color. It's the Cascade Eco. You work, like I said, you work the button band and garter at the same time. And then when you get to the top, you do raglan decreases. It's a bottom-up sweater. And you do your raglan decreases, and then you actually keep working the collar, and you do a bind off at the back neck. So it's actually quite a clever construction. And I asked Kelly about, because it's a very similar collar on the pomme de pin that's also by Amy. I love Amy's patterns. I have to admit, I've knit most of her patterns, and I own most of her patterns. And I just had never knit the pomme de pin because it's the collar, like, you know, how does it sit on your shoulders? How does it wear? Anyways, Kelly said that she has loved both of the sweaters. And I just thought, you know what? There's not a ton of knitting in this. I'm going to just knit it up, get some of these yarns out of my stash. And I don't have very many. I have about 3 sweaters quantities of these yarns that need to be used. And you can see, I've actually started weaving in the ends already, but you can see how the yarn, like, it was broken. So when I was winding, I had to, you know, just keep finding the end and winding and finding the end. So there's a lot of ends to weave in. So I've just been weaving them in as I go. I'm sure you guys are laughing at me. Oh, good to see you, Laureline, as you join. I'm sure the snow is on your way to Bellingham, Jennifer, because it's snowing quite heavily here. Suzanne says you are actually heading into the period that I found to be the busiest with kids. Don't be too hard on yourself. Yarn and wool don't spoil. There's always time when you can get to it. It's funny you would say that, Suzanne, because we were actually talking about that on Thursday night with my girlfriends I was telling you guys about that I grew up with. My kids are the oldest of all of the kids in the group. So the next oldest are ages with Nora. So I'm kind of like 2 years ahead of all of them. And 2 of them actually have newborns. They're only 1 year old. And because we've chosen this sort of blended homeschool kind of program, and the kids are home, I'm finding it's like snippets here and there that I can get of making. You know, Nora wants to go back into piano. They both play a lot of soccer. We've got tutoring for James's reading. And it just kind of all, you know, cuts into it. So I'm taking a very philosophical approach of like, what gets done, and it's okay. So at the end of the day, my making will always be there. And if we go through a stage kind of like we did last year, where I do a lot more knitting because I'm waiting at the soccer field, I'm waiting at the piano lessons, that's okay too. And spindles are very portable indeed. Kelly says, I've been living in that sweater since I finished it. Kay, that makes me feel really good because I've been living in my cat bills until yesterday when I pulled out my jingle, and then I'll probably wear this for the rest of the month because it's the only time of year I can wear this. I know some would say you could wear it at any time of the year, but I kind of like to save it because it's really special, and I want to still be wearing it, you know, in many years. And actually, I have stains on the cuffs that I need to take some Nature's Miracle to. If you guys haven't heard about Nature's Miracle, if you're not dog owners, go to the pet store, get Nature's Miracle. It's a spray. It's much gentler on your clothing than, say, you know, some of the stain removers that are out there that are the spray on and leave stain removers. I really love Nature's Miracle because it only eats the organic material. No, it does not eat the wool. You can't leave it on indefinitely, but it'll even take red wine out of carpet and out of cushions, like out of sofas. Ask me how I know. So it'll eat up all of the stuff. There was salsa that was spilled in the car on like, we've got felt on the inside. It's very complicated, but there's felt in the car, and the kids spilled salsa, and I was like, oh, here we go. Sprayed some Nature's Miracle, and it was gone within couple of days, about a week. It takes a bit to work, but if you spray it on your clothes and leave it for a couple of hours and then wash, the stains and everything will come out. So Nature's Miracle. If you've got dogs and cats, you know what I'm talking about. Diane says, yes, this age is a busy one for parents. I remember doing lots of small projects so I could feel some sort of accomplishment happening. I feel like that's what is on the horizon for me as well, Diane. So let's, no. So Dion, once you knit the sweater, will it continue to break down? No. I think what happens, I would love to hear somebody who's really has a lot of knowledge of yarn and long-term yarn storage. I think what happens is, I remember Elizabeth Zimmerman talking about this in some of her books. When yarn is like stored for a long time and it's in one form, like whether it's in a ball or when it's in a skein, there's sort of a certain amount of like tension on the yarn wherever it's sort of being how it's being held, and it just starts to get weak. I also was wondering if we had moths, because I've got a couple of holes in sweaters. I've got some holes in socks that I found since I found my Suffolk socks. So we've actually gone through and we've cleaned out our closet. We've cleaned out a couple of the drawers that I keep my woolens in. I've cleaned them all out, but there's no bugs. So I think it's just time and storage. So I would love to hear more. I had no idea you could use Nature's Miracle for stain removal. Yes, you can. Just don't leave it for a really, really, really long time. Like, don't spray it on and leave it for months, because it'll eat away everything organic. The nice thing about it is it'll leave anything behind that's not organic material. So yeah, brilliant. Okay, let me share with you some projects from this week. So I shared this with you guys last week. I had done this drawdown. Sorry, let me move the camera over because you guys are only seeing the side of my head. Mike got me the poinsettia last night at work. He brought it home for me, which is just lovely for those who love poinsettias. So James was playing with color for this for me, and we redid all the color. I talked about it in depth last weekend. I had gotten the warp wound. I showed that to you guys. This week I got it on the loom. So this is the drawdown. You'll notice that the treadling pattern, which is on that far side over there, it's just 2 2 12. That's it. 1 2 2 3 3 4 4 1, and you just do that over and over and over again. It's a straight treadling, so you can see it goes 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. You're not treadling anything special. You're not even treadling. You're not even doing like treadling as rote. You're just treadling a straight treadle. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Your tie up, which is here, and you've got your color bar along the top with the red and the green and the couple of picks of ends of white, is a straight draw, but then it goes into the point twill, so that your green ends up being kind of the point of the threading, and then it kind of creates this sort of what it creates on the fabric is this really lovely movement, and it really does look like candy canes. So I took a couple of photos because it's really hard to show you guys on the loom itself. I think over time I'll try to film a little bit more of weaving and being on the loom and all of that stuff. So as I get more and more comfortable, I will do that. But here it is on the loom. So you can see, because of the changing direction of the twill, it kind of has this movement to it. And Mike was closing the blinds right here last night, and he looked down at the loom and he said, "Oh, I really like those." I love them. So I ended up, my plan originally was to do the red and the green all the way across the towel. So it was going to go all the way across. It was going to be full width. And what ended up happening was I sort of did my initial warp, but I didn't have tons and tons of the red. And I didn't want to start driving around the greater Vancouver area trying to find more cones of 2/8 cotton in that particular red. I think I'll end up making these again, and I will make them quite a bit bigger. I'll make the warp quite a bit longer, and I'll make sure that I have enough of the colors. So what I ended up doing was 2 side panels in just the white. It's sort of a creamy natural white, 60 ends on each side, and rather than trying to widen the candy cane, if you will. And so it's just super easy. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and you're just throwing the shuttle back and forth, back and forth. I'm not worrying about how long they are. I'm not worrying about putting in hems. I'm not worrying about putting in separators, nothing. I'm just weaving, and then I'll hem and separate them after I pull the warp off. So that is my big project right now, and I have just been loving these. They're so, so great. So the big thing this week, I'll just have a look at chat because you guys, it's moving very quickly. Thank you, Diana. So she says, I saw this on Instagram. It's amazing. Simple, elegant, perfect colors. Thank you so much. It's funny actually because James chose that lighter green, and it kind of made me think in the warp of sort of like a Grinchy Christmas, you know, like the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, a little bit Dr. Seuss, because it's kind of that lime green, and it's hard to see the point, but it's subtle enough that it's really quite lovely, and it's just got a lovely look to it. I'm really glad I threw these on the loom and that I looked at this again a second time after kind of feeling like they were too advanced, quote unquote, a couple of years ago. I thought it was last Christmas, but it was actually Christmas of 2019. So it's no wonder I felt overwhelmed, because I was so new to floor loom weaving at the time. And I remember thinking I could just do these in plain weave And I should have, because they wouldn't give you that candy cane look. It would be more straight across, but it would still be lovely. So you could throw this in 4/8 cotton. You could throw this in 4/8 cotton onto a rigid heddle, and you would have some lovely, lovely towels. You could totally do that and just do plain weave, and just warp up as if it was plain weave. It would be really, really pretty. You just have a checked pattern instead of the twill striping, and that would be lovely too. So, you know, it's interesting, Amanda, that you would say that, worth putting some traps around for moths so that you can check periodically. I think that's a really great idea. I think you guys are onto something there. I think I might do that just in case, because sometimes you can't find evidence, but they're there. We're also going to be renoing and pulling everything out, and I think that'll help really a lot too, because we're putting, we have linoleum in our, or not linoleum, we have engineered hardwood in our master bedroom. It's cheap stuff. It's actually the same floor that you see when I'm filming in here. And we're pulling all of that out and putting carpet back in, just because I prefer carpet in bedrooms. I really like it under my feet. And so it'll be nice to get all of that out of there and really feel like it's really clean again, you know. It's been, the flooring upstairs has been in for more than 15 years. It was here when we bought the house, and we've owned this house now for 12 years. So it's time. What a satisfying project. I really love the border. I think one of the things that the border does, Julie, is it frames it as well. So when you fold it into thirds, you'll see the candy cane, but then when you unfold them, it'd be really lovely. I thought this would be really pretty too for a table runner down a rectangular table. I thought that would be really, really pretty as well. All right, so thank you so much, you guys, and I am actually planning on writing this up, since it was just a Google search for the image that I had done originally. So I am planning on putting this into a pattern and sort of, you know, formatting it and whatnot, and you guys will be able to make your own. I just haven't had a chance yet. So I know that not everybody here celebrates Christmas and celebrates the holiday, and some are, you know, secular. Some people celebrate other things. Some people, you know, do other stuff. We do celebrate Advent in our home, and I did get an Advent calendar this year to spin. So this is from Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Works, and I opened week 1 this week. So there was a package on top, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to open it or not. So I ended up doing that, but I didn't open everything that was in it because I wasn't totally sure what Liz wanted me to do. So this is from Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Works. I did her Advent spin last year, and I ended up making that huck blanket. I wove it with all of my Advent colors afterwards. And the idea is that you spin all of this, and then you've got this pattern that you can make into with your hand spun if you want to. And so when I opened this was really fun. I didn't open everything that was in it. Like I said, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to open it or not. But it was really fun to get into an Advent calendar. Mike and I always do the David's Tea Advent calendars every year, and that's been really fun. I actually got, spoiler alert for those who have the Advent calendar from David's Tea, I've got, it's dark chocolate orange this morning, which is one of my favorite teas. And so this is what came on top, and then there were these 2 little packages inside, but I didn't open them. I'm going to save them for later. This little bag is just the cutest thing, and it'll fit on the wheel. You know, if you've got like a little place to put a little spinning notions pocket onto your wheel, this is just absolutely perfect. This will fit beautifully onto my Lundrum. And there's a side where the tension knob is on the Magic-Craft, it'll fit there as well, which I thought was brilliant. And then I ordered the medium wool. It was the Polypay that I ended up getting. These are all the bags that are up and coming, so it's like week 4B. I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to kind of go through everything. I was going to ask Liz for a little bit of direction, and then the Polypay cross. So I opened it up, and you guys will see the color. Oh, Dion, that's wonderful. She ordered one from Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Works as well. She loves the bag. Cindy says, I love that bag. I wound up ordering 2 more from her for my other wheels. Oh, so you guys have started using them already. So I would love to hear how how you found having that hanging there. Like I thought it was just an awesome idea, kind of like a spinning apron, but a little pocket at the front to have that. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. She says that would be a gorgeous runner. That was for the candy cane towels. So what I ended up doing with the Polypay was I haven't spun Polypay for a really long time. It's often got like a downy feel to it. I've really enjoyed it in the past when I've done it. I ended up going down the entire length of the roving, and I pre-drafted all of it just to open it up and really get it. It looks like a big thing of cotton candy, doesn't it? And then very, very, very loosely, I wound it onto one of my distaves. This is one of my distaves. This is one of my longer ones. You can see sort of in relation to me, it's quite large. And I have found that spinning off of it has been a wee bit complicated. It's not bad. I've actually kind of enjoyed it, to be honest. But one of the things that I have done, and I'll just move this over here a little bit so that you guys can see. I'm hoping that my apron doesn't completely blend in with the see if that works. Come on, stay put. Sometimes the camera has a bit of a mind of its own. So let me just move a little bit closer. I'll just move this over a little bit. So this is what I've been doing to spin. So I started on a ratio of 17:1, and I was just finding that way too much twist was going in for what I was going for. I actually found it a little bit difficult to get going with this. I was spinning long draw a little bit, but I don't know, it wasn't really drafting out the way that I wanted it to. So I've just been sitting quietly and working at it when I can, and I've actually had a surprising amount of time to be able to sit and spin. I really missed spin group this week because we meet 3 times per month, and this week was one of our off weeks, and I was like, I want to do spin group because I need to get my Advent spinning done, because it's just such a wonderful thing for me to be able to work on while we're chatting and fielding questions and talking about what we're talking about. So this is kind of, so I ended up going down to 12:1 because it didn't need all that twist. And I haven't been spinning straight off the distaff because I found that it's just a little bit too much to hold right now. But this is what I'm getting for yarn, and I just, oh my goodness, I love it so much. And look at that elasticity. Nice firm ply back. It's not overly soft. I don't want it overly soft. My plan is to do something woven with this, but you can see that I'm just very, very gentle, holding my backhand very gentle, because remember, this is pre-drafted, so there's lots and lots of air in there and loft, and I want to be able to preserve that. If anybody has any questions, we can definitely field them now while I'm at the wheel. This is quite downy and really bouncy and springy. So I was looking for ways to preserve that and ways to sort of keep that intact. And then when I get to the end, I haven't been trying to hold this while spinning. It's just way too much to try to sort of sit here and hold this and keep it all in hand. But I have been keeping it next to me, and fuzzy bits to fuzzy bits, and then just continuing on. So it's sort of about three counts back, 1, 2, 3 on. I've actually found it really hard this week. I don't know why, but I've found it really, really challenging to get my uptake right. Everything that I've spun this week, the uptake hasn't been correct. It's been too loose, too light, too heavy. I just couldn't find a rhythm this week. I don't know why. But this feels really nice right now, and I'll just keep spinning it this way. Charlotte asks, are you hopping or sliding? I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Charlotte, are you wondering, are you at, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you mean. So if I weave it, should I add more twist? Yes, Dion, you want to add a little bit more twist. When I weave with my hand spun yarns, I have found, and this might change, so I'm not sure. I have found that I prefer my yarns to feel a bit harder. We've had this whole conversation in my OHS study group, so Ontario Hand Weavers and Spinners group. We've been working through our Unit 1 studies, and I have found, and one of the things we've been talking about is sort of knitting yarns versus weaving yarns. And what came up the other day was sort of this idea of fulling and this idea of sort of, you know, what we want our yarns to feel and look like. And I think one of the things that I've gotten very used to over the years is quite soft spun yarns because of all of the knitting that I've done over the years. I very much have always identified as a knitter versus a weaver. And the more that I work with wool weaving yarns, the more that I have noticed how much harder they are. And it's not a bad thing. They just need to do a different thing. So the yarn that I'm using for, say, my farmhouse cardigan by Amy Christophers is very, very soft compared to, and makes quite a soft fabric. Let's just talk about this for a minute because I think it's something that I've really started to, I've only just started to begin to appreciate. So I'm just going to put this down and out of the way. And then I'm just going to look away if you get motion sick because I don't want anybody to feel motion sick. I'm just going to turn the camera around here so that you guys can see. All right, so if you look at this fabric, and I'm sorry that I'm in the middle of a row, that was not planned. And then if we look at some of my woven samples, these are not pressed yet, okay? This is both woolen, these are both wool. This fabric is very, very soft and airy. It's light and bouncy and springy. The rib goes right back. And I can break this with my hand. It's just like a very soft spun airy yarn. This is Briggs & Little Sport, and it's a singles yarn. You can break it with your hand. It's not particularly, you know, it's not a particularly tough yarn, but it creates a much denser fabric, and it's more rustic. It's a more toothy, hard-wearing yarn. It's spun a little bit harder. So when you're weaving with it and when you're winding your warp and stuff, there's a lot of active twist in it. And when it's washed, all of that twist reactivates and reactivates in the fringe. And so what I've been doing is laying the fringe out by hand and then pressing it so that it lays flat. But you can see in there all of that twist in there. But you can see with the fabric, like this just would make an amazing coat. This fabric, and like you can't put your finger through it. It's quite a dense, tough fabric, and because of weaving fabric being sort of more three-dimensional, it makes a very strong, sturdy fabric, and yet so you've kind of got this sort of slightly harder spun. I haven't pressed any of this, so it's bugging me that it's not laying flat. Sort of a stronger, sturdier fabric. This is a plain weave. Nope, this is 2-2 twill in the 2-stripe repeat. And you can see again, like just a really sturdy fabric. This is fulled, scoured and fulled. And it just makes this just beautiful fabric. This fabric actually is what sold me on doing a coat with it, to be honest with you. I just love it. So that's my long-term plan, not for my final project, for my OHS, for my Unit 1. And then this is 1-on-3 filling face twill. And you can see my beat got a bit harder in here, but you also have some thicker bits because the yarn is a bit rustic. But again, just a really, really lovely fabric. So yeah. So definitely, Dion, more twist in the singles, more twist in the ply. And for me personally, what's worked really well is a nice firm ply back. You don't want it to be really, really hard and overspun and wiry and icky, because you can full and finish your fabric really nicely, but you definitely want a little bit more sort of oomph in your fabrics. Just let me move the cables out of the way there. So I hope that that is helpful. Oh, Charlotte, great question. I think I see your forward hand hopping back rather than smoothing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not smoothing particularly firmly at all. I'm sort of more hopping back. That's absolutely right. Yeah. So, let me just make sure there's no other questions. Oh yeah, there was no book club yesterday, Jennifer. We're doing our wrap up on the 10th for the Left Hand of Darkness. And then we'll start up again in the new year. Becca and I have been chatting about all of that, so excited for what we're going to do for our next books. And Kelly says, I'm so far behind on my Long Way Homestead. So actually, that's going to be my priority in the new year. Starting in January, I'm going to try to work through one per month and just try to get through them, because my subscription is done. I've got all 12. But I need to sort of get them spun. So I think I've actually done quite a few. I've done 5 out of 12. That's not bad, but I have them all sitting here in my basket back here, and I'm just going to start trucking through them. More twists than singles imply. And then Suzanne says, my spinning friends and I were just discussing this weaving yarn versus spinning yarn idea earlier this week. I'm glad that it's pertinent to what you were doing, Suzanne. And then Amanda says, I prefer to weave with yarns that are not very elastic. Absolutely. And some people actually prefer to weave with yarns that aren't even finished yet. So there is sort of there's the old idea out there that you never finish your yarns until after you've woven with them. And because your yarns change in the finishing process when you're spinning, after you finish spinning them, I remember Diana and I actually having this conversation about, like, your yarns change when you finish them. So if you're going to weave with them, it's good to know kind of how they're going to change. But I can also see how, like, these yarns are not aggressively finished when you purchase them. So you're working with yarns that haven't been overly finished. And then I went back and I scoured these and I finished them after the fact, and oh my goodness, did the fabric change. So, there's still spinning oils in there, there's pectins, there's gums, there's residue from the spinning process. And so going back and scouring these afterwards, they're actually a wee bit damp still in some of the more dense areas of the fabric. So I need to make sure that they get completely dry. But I can really feel how much the fabric has changed, which is actually really good, because that's something that you would want to know if you were doing a garment, a big coat or an outer vest or a big blanket that is possibly going to hit water in its future in the washing and finishing process. If the fabric's not completely finished beforehand, you're going to be in for some surprises. Rebecca has an interesting question. Would you say that spinning harder yarn is, harder? Or is it just a matter of choosing the right fiber and wheel settings? That's a really great question. I think it's a combination of both, to be honest. This yarn, the Briggs & Little Sport, is quite a rustic yarn. That's sort of the best way of describing it. It's just a rustic yarn. However, somebody was saying in our weaving group the other day in our OHS group, that this is one of their favorite yarns for knitting socks, and that it's one of the best yarns that she's found for knitting socks, even though it's a singles yarn. So now I'm curious. I'm going to use one of my leftovers to do some sock sampling, because that hand spun singles that are a little bit harder spun out of a sort of a more toothy wool. So something, a little bit more like on the sort of medium, but more like harder medium side. So I'm sort of trying to think of some breeds that would maybe be an option. Something that's a cross, a Romney, BFL. I'm trying to think of some of the crosses locally here. CVM cross, that where they don't make the, a ram's fleece that's a little bit toothier, a little bit higher micron count. Like, we're not talking 24 microns. We're talking like 30, 32, 35 microns, maybe even 40. Some of those fleeces that you think immediately you're like, no, that's not next to the skin. I wouldn't want that around my neck. now I'm kind of dreaming about some of those wools and some of those yarns for some of this stuff. So yeah, they are a little bit harder, but I also think that when we can preserve some of that air and some of that loft in our yarns, I often notice with my yarns anyways, that I end up really loving them after they're washed and finished because they bloom, right? So I don't want that elasticity. So I want more twist in there so that they're not like, boing kind of thing. Somewhere in between. And like Amanda was saying, I don't love it when the thing about elastic yarns that I have found is when you're tensioning the loom and you're moving your warp forward, you're kind of cranking on your warp to tighten it up so that you can pass your shuttle and put your weft in. But if it's really bouncy and really springy, every time you beat, the whole thing moves. And you're tightening and it's just a lot of elasticity at the loom can be really hard. And that was one of my chief complaints on the rigid heddle, was a lot of elasticity in those knitting yarns that people tend to put on the rigid heddle. I often was finding I was having tensioning issues. And then when I went to a floor loom or a table loom, a lot of that was resolved because I could put a lot more tension on those stretchy yarns. So just lots and lots of stuff to think about. A great book is Spin to Weave by Sarah Lamb. Charlotte just mentioned that. It's an excellent book. She also has lots of patterns and stuff. Is that Sarah Lamb that does all of that? Get Weaving with Sarah. She, if you look at her Instagram, she has tons of sewing patterns that you can look at. So my yarns are never balanced before washing and finishing. Yeah, so when you take it off the loom, I mean, generally when you've got your piece fresh off the loom, it's not balanced. If it was balanced on the loom though, hopefully post finishing it will be, or you kind of have to play around with set. Sometimes you have to figure out what that's going to look like for a balanced weave post finishing. So these are all balanced post finishing, which is pretty cool. All right, so that yarn is my favorite yarn for the woolen honey sweater. I'm assuming, Brittany, you're talking about the Briggs & Little Sport. I never even thought about it for the woolen honey. I have other yarn from Disdarrow Ranch for that sweater, but now I'm kind of thinking, that's a great idea. Yeah. Again, a slightly toothier yarn, but it holds the structure really beautifully because Brittany's woolen honey is just beautiful. All right, so I think we've waxed poetic about all of my projects. I didn't get any progress on my chaotic fibers, my white-faced woodland, llama, Rami, and bamboo this week. I do have my second distaff prepped and ready to go. I just haven't had any time to spin on it. It's totally fine. And my silk puff, which is from Sweet Georgia Yarns, on my e-spinner, I haven't actually worked on it as well. In the evening yesterday, we did do a Christmas movie yesterday evening after we got back from swimming. We walked to the pool, walked back, and it was still early enough. It was only 6:15, 6:30 when we got home, so we decided to do a movie, but I just sat. I didn't work on anything. Too tired. Long division makes me tired. That's what we were working on, long division. All right, let's do community participation. I was just looking to see actually what you guys were saying about the twist. Kelly says, if my yarn doesn't twist on itself prior to finishing, I add more twist. It loses way too much twist during finishing otherwise. Absolutely. And I used to find that I would finish my yarn, or I would spin my yarns, and I would make sure that my plyback test was super loose. You guys might even remember this from when we first started the podcast. My yarns have changed a lot from when I first started spinning. I would do my plyback tests and they would be really loosey-goosey and almost kind of not plied, and they would kind of look like this. This needs to be plied. It's just sitting here, but they would look like this. They would be like, underspun, they would just kind of sit together like that. That honest to goodness, like that is what my plyback test would look like. And then when I went to ply, I would put just a huge amount of ply twist in it, and I would end up with these really like kinky curly skeins, but they would go into the water and a lot of that twist would dissipate, right? And I would end up with these just really lofty, light sweater yarns, and it's how I can get so much grist get my grist really super high and make really small amounts of fiber go really, really far. Those are great knitting yarns. The problem is they're not so great on the loom, and they do bias when you knit. There was something else I was going to say about that. They pill. They pill really badly. So quite a few of my sweaters that are my absolute most favorite sweaters, my Albini is one actually, the pilling is really significant, and it's all under here where your arms rub. That's a really high wear area of a sweater. For anybody who's worn a lot of hand knit sweaters and has worked with a lot of soft spun yarns in sweaters, you'll probably see all of that pilling. And I often will sit there when I'm chatting with people and I'll be picking pills off. And then I'm like, oh, this is just so bad. I need to get a gleaner. That's what I need to get. But so my yarns have changed over time. And I think that over the past year, I've really noticed that I put a lot more twist into my yarns, way more than I used to. So just always changing, always learning. Oh, that's so funny. Lisa says, I love math homework. You know, it's funny. Just a little side note here. I've actually really enjoyed going back and relearning some of this stuff. You guys are going to laugh at me. Math was actually not a weakness of mine. Like I've always been okay at math, and it's not my strength, but I'm okay at it, and I understand the concepts. I did math 12. But it's been really fun going back and doing this stuff with James because they're teaching it so differently now, and it's very visual. And I am actually learning so much. Like I know my 12 times tables now like this. And I mean, I knew them, but now I like really know them. I've actually really enjoyed going back and redoing it. And I'm kind of excited to keep building. And like we were doing entry level algebra yesterday because they're introducing brackets. And so I was saying to James, like, this is beginning algebra. Like this is, you know, getting into sort of when you start to use brackets and you start to sort of look at fractions. And he was really excited. He loves math. So does Nora. Mike loves math. And he actually owns several math textbooks and that he's read. Like he really, really loves math. And I've really enjoyed coming back and looking at this stuff again, because if I had had more support, I think I would have done a lot better in math than I did, even though I didn't do badly. But just that support and more visual teaching. My math 12 teacher, I had him 2 years in a row, Mr. Gursky, I'll never forget him. He was phenomenal. And I wish that I had had him earlier because the foundational pieces were lacking. And you can't build if you don't have the foundation. So it's been really fun going back. So this is from Jennifer. This is our breeding color study, Jacob. I have been playing a lot with the colors on the Jacob breeding color study. Originally, I made a gradient shawl, but I didn't like the color shifts. And although I learned a ton about how colors played together, I ended up with a shawl that I couldn't imagine wearing out anywhere. I thought about hanging it on the wall as a sort of learning piece, and then I listened to Rachel's discussion about a sweater she'd made and didn't like and frogged. So then I got double weaving time out of the Crafty Jack's fiber, and informed by the color choices I played with on the shawl, I made 3 hats, which I do like and will wear. I have to say the hat that's in this is the original shawl, but the hat that's in the middle, I love that, Jennifer. I think that turned out I think they all turned out beautifully, but that one in the middle, I just love that one. And I like that you did pom-poms on them. She goes on to say some more about the study, but I'll let you guys read it because it's quite long, and it's just it's what she's ended up with. She learned that the white shows the contrast colors the best. The gray tends to lose them, and the black is somewhat in between the white and the gray. Some of the colors stand out, but the darker colors merge in. And someone mentioned a conditioner. I found the Jacob a bit harsh, but great globs of conditioner in the water prior to blocking really helped. Although I might still add inside knitted bands of something like merino so there's no scratch against the forehead. You'll have to keep us posted, Jennifer, on what you decide to do. The pom-poms are very fun. Becca says the way any subject is presented, especially one that is not intuitive for us, makes so much difference to how we think of ourselves as learners. Absolutely, Becca. And it's been really fun putting on the learner hat again. And sort of doing that alongside. It's been really fun. This is from Alicia. Final finally finished with my Jacob study. I went with a cabled hat that I'd been wanting to knit and paired my handspun with some black commercial yarn for the brim. The cables get a bit lost in the yarn, but I still love the way it turned out with the colors, and I think if I were to knit with it again, I'd go for a simpler pattern to allow the colors to be the focus. It's still really effective, Alicia. It's really, really lovely. This is from Kaylee. This is Breeding Color Study when we did our Charolais, and I was looking back to see when we did our Charolais study, and it was 2020. It was from July to December of 2020. So right in the midst of everything and all the lockdowns and so on and so forth. So I love these photos from Kaylee. I finally have an FO with my Charolais yarn. After a quick swatch, I cast on this ribbed hat. It is warm and perfectly stretchy, which we would expect from the downy nature of Charolais. It was so bouncy and springy and just lovely. I may rip back the crown decreases to add more length and clean up the decreases, but it's done for now. This makes me insanely happy. These crazy bats had bold color and a very different fiber that I struggled with, and with some play, they turned into a functional project. Absolutely. I think Kaylee took all of the colors and I think she blended it all together. I'm just trying to remember. Lisa says, I'm super interested in the new styles of learning maths. I love the variety of methods. Absolutely. Dion says, I add a satin lining to my hats so they don't dry out my hair. That's a great idea, Dion. I never thought of that. I bet you for somebody who's super overly sensitive on their forehead, that would help too, because James finds like a lot of the hats are just too scratchy on his forehead, and that would help a lot with if you put a satin lining. Very cool. Natural Shades Along. This is from Suzanne. I love this so much. I am so pleased with the results of my first hand spun sweater. Over the last year, I've been practicing supported long draw using various breeds I have had in my stash for a long time. This sweater uses a combination of carded and combed Shetland, cream, taupe, chocolate brown, and dark brown, carded Romney, marled cream and brown, and a tiny bit of carded Corriedale in the white. Isn't that picture of the yarns amazing? And all those swatches, oh, so great, that I used every so often in the cream section to stretch the yardage. I just think this is fantastic. Well done, Suzanne. And I hope that you're wearing it. Oh, this is an interesting comment from Amanda. How old you are and how ready you are for abstract versus concrete concepts makes a big difference in math. When I taught it, I always said that coming back to it later was better than hating it now. That's a great, yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to keep up with chat, you guys. Chat always goes by so quickly, and it's hard to keep up, and yet it's so great to be able to share what you guys are thinking about and talking about. This is from Laura. Here's the resulting sweater from the green cable plied yarn that I did over 7 months ago. She was talking about this cabled yarn for quite a while and sharing some photos and whatnot. So it just looks amazing. What great structure. The lighter green is Cascade 220, and all I can say is this project really taught me how much nicer handspun is to knit with. It was a very direct side-by-side comparison. And there's nothing wrong with Cascade 220. It's a great workhorse worsted yarn. Absolutely, Laura, I totally agree. But comparatively, the handspun is so much better. Yes. The pattern is the Calla Luna by Christina T. Gerlanda. I hope I'm saying that right. And that was hashtag 0 to hero. This is from Megan for our play segment. I love these so much. The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct. That's from Carl Jung. I have been having a lot of fun this week sewing up these wool felt with wool thread that I totally copied from Sarah of Fiber Trek, and Sarah's were so amazing. If you guys don't watch Fiber Trek, I would highly recommend it. Sarah is a wonderful, wonderful person, and she's always got really cool things that she's working on. So these ornaments are just fantastic. And then Megan also shared her 6-year-old getting started spinning on her Lendrum. Isn't that fantastic? So that's her 6-year-old there. And I'm sure that Megan made that sweater. This is from Tatiana. I love this photo. These are all my colors. I spent the day doing some spinning, housekeeping, skein up and measuring some finished yarns and washing a Murret Shetland fleece, and my newest spins all look really good together. Yes, yes they do. I love them. I hope you combine them in a project. They're all 3-ply. The left one is Corriedale chain ply and 2 traditional 3-ply skeins. The blue on BFL and then the rose on the merino. Aren't those beautiful? I love these colors. Beautiful spinning, Tatiana. And this is from Crystal, because I had to share this, because how could you not share a dinosaur knitting? Crystal has a wonderful sense of humor. For all the Americans, happy Thanksgiving, and hope you are all enjoying time with your family as much as I am. I've even been able to squeeze in a bit of knitting while entertaining my 3-year-old nephew. Progress has been slow. I bet it is, but so much fun. Tatiana's yarns are gorgeous, says Suzanne. Alberto met Sarah in Belfast, Maine last month. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, she's wonderful. So thank you, Crystal, for sharing this. And then last but not least, oh no, not last but not least, this is from Brittany. I love this sweater so much. It's actually got me thinking about my Lunenburg, because I kind of left it because I need to redo the body. But this is from Brittany. This is not hand spun, but I shared this knit in the Maker Morning a few weeks back. It is knit in Nutiden unspun. So if you guys are interested, that yarn it's in the show notes under Brittany's thing, but you can Google Nutiden. I think that's how you say it. It's very, very difficult to get, but it's a lovely yarn. Likely my most favorite sweater now, along with my woolen honey, and the pattern, of course, is Lunenburg by Amy Christophers. Beautiful, and I love her color choice, just perfect. And then last but not least, this is from Sam. I'll let you guys read it, and then I'll read it out loud for those who need some assistance. But I'll let you guys read it first. Sam posted this in the Slack channel. So for anybody who hasn't seen Finding Nemo, I would highly recommend that you check out that movie. When you post a picture of a finished project in a fiber arts group, all of the seagulls are saying pattern, pattern, pattern. That's exactly what happens. So thank you for sharing that, Sam. It made me laugh out loud, and I really appreciate that. So until next time, thank you so much for being here, you guys. I really appreciate it. We've got queries and explorations coming up at 10 a.m. So I will see you guys in that, for those who participate in queries. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I am going to go check in with the kids and see what they think about the snow and how James is doing with his long division. And until next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy weaving, happy all the things. I will see you guys then. Bye.